Hi, welcome to videomathlessons.com. This is an Algebra 2 and Trigonometry quick lesson. This is lesson number 24, Trigonometry Graphing. Well, we have two ways we're going to graph. We can either graph using the calculator or just doing it by hand. This problem is actually pretty easy to do by hand, but I will show you both ways just so you remember how to do it. So if I was going to do this by hand, I would look at the parts of this equation. So the number in front is the amplitude, which is going to be the height from the middle of the graph up or from the middle of the graph down. This number over here is called the frequency, and frequency tells you how many curves from 0 to 2 pi. Okay, so when I see this, what it's saying to me is I'll have half a picture from 0 to 2 pi. And on the back, sometimes they have a shift. It could have a vertical shift. It could have a horizontal shift. It was inside parentheses, be side to side. This one doesn't have anything. So this is going to be pretty much a basic sine curve, but just half of one. So what we usually have people do is write down the amp, freq, period, and the period is how much space you need for the full curve. Well, let's start with the amp. Amp is 2. It's always positive. It's absolute value. The frequency we already said was 1/2. Period has a formula you have to memorize. The period formula is 2 pi divided by frequency. So this would be 2 pi divided by 1/2. If you don't know how to divide by a fraction, you can use your calculator. Just don't type in the pi. So you do 2 divided by 1/2, and I'll put the half in parentheses. Otherwise, just use decimal 0.5. And take a look. We get a 4. So when I say 2 pi over 1/2, it's really 4, but don't forget the pi goes upstairs. This tells me I would need from 0 to 4 pi for one complete sine curve. Now, a sine curve from 0 looks like this. Looks like a letter S. And it's going to follow a pattern. So those are the zeros, and these are the... So if I mark it every 90, it would look like this. Now, since this is half a curve, I'm expecting only to see this half from 0 to 2 pi. So that would be my 0. That's my 2 pi. And the middle will be pi. So let's go to the graph. So this graph, we have plenty of room. So I'll mark this as 1, 2. And I don't need to go any further because the height is only 2. So skipping 2 boxes, -1, -2. Now, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 boxes. So maybe I'll do 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that'll be pi. And another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That'll be 2 pi. So what this is saying is follow the pattern. 0, end on 0. 0, end on 0. The middle, I'm at height 2. It looks like this. And it's a little tricky on the computer, but hopefully you can do it easy on your paper. So let's do it backwards now because they want me to go to -2 pi. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's negative pi. 1, 2, 3, 4. -2 pi. And I'm just going to follow this pattern. So notice it's 0 at the front and 0 at the back. The middle was down to 2. And that's my curve. Now, let's do it on a calculator too, so make sure you can do it on a calculator. The only time you're in radian mode is when you're graphing. All right, so make sure your calculator set to radian mode. I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to type in 2 sine half x. And if you want, you could type in 2 sine 0.5, which is what I'm going to do, just to make it a little easier. Otherwise, just put the fraction in. So that's the equation. Now, if I hit graph, I get something, which is kind of what I'm doing. But what I want to do is I'm going to set it to the window from here to here. That's going to help me. So now look at the x values, -2 pi to +2 pi. So I'm going to press window. X is -2 pi. And the y value is +2 pi. Now, since I'm counting by pi's over here, my scale for my x would be pi over 2. Now, the y values, the low is negative 2, high is positive 2. So y min negative 2, y max positive 2. And let's hit graph and see what this looks like. And that's kind of what I have on my curve here, my picture. Look at that nice sine curve. And that's pretty much it. Notice if I count by, this would be the pi over 2, right? So this would be, if I was going to mark this up fully, this is pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. And I can go backwards with that also. This is a nice sine curve. The only last thing would be to label it, y equals 2 sine half x. If there was 2 curves, I would have to label it. There's only 1 curve, I really technically don't have to, but it's good practice. So let's try another one. All right, now take a look at this one. This is some big complicated formula. This one goes in a calculator. This is a calculator question. So I'm going to clear this out. And it says this is something about snowfall, and they give you a bunch of things, 1970, blah, 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 blah. And they want to know what's the minimum snowfall. So let's type it in. 20 plus 10 cosine. Now this is where it's going to get complicated. So I'm just going to type it in, pi over 5 times t. Now we don't have t, so we're going to use x. So it'd be second pi divided by 5. And we use x for our variable. Close parentheses, it's good practice. And I could hit graph. And this is most people would do, hit graph. And I don't see anything because our window is messed up from the last problem. So let's go over here and write down some important things. This 20 in the front is called the vertical shift. The vertical shift. That means the entire graph is lifted up by 20. Here's my amp. This pi over 5 is my frequency. And I can find the period. So what this says, right? Just like, I'm just going to there's a ballpark here. Just rough guess. This is saying I don't even start till I'm at 20. 20 is over here. From 20, I'm going to go up and down by tens. So my graph is hanging up in the air. Remember, this graph is set at 2. So my graph is, my window's right here. My real graph is all the way up here. So I have my y height. My y height is going to be 30. It'd be nice to find what the nice period would be, what this value over here should be. So we have a formula for period. Period equals 2 pi over frequency. So it'd be 2 pi divided by pi over 5. Now, this is where it gets a little weird. I could do this on a calculator. If you type this whole thing in just like it is, the pi's are actually cancel out. So let me do it on the calculator. So let me second quit this. So I'll do it just like I say it. So 2 pi. Now the only reason I'm typing pi in is because I have pi in the bottom also. It's going to go away. Divided by pi over 5. And we get a 10. Now in reality, I would never do it that way. In class. I would just cancel the pi's out like that and then do 2 divided by 1/5. So that's telling me this here is a 10. So now let's fix our window. So go to window, x min 0, x max 10. Now these are regular numbers, x scale 1. Y min, we can go to 0, y min 0, y max 30. Now hopefully this gives us a nice picture. Now it's a cosine curve, that's why it looks like a cup, and that's a really nice picture. The trick is to get it from here onto this paper, onto the graph. So what we're going to do is go to table, and I'm going to get my nice numbers from 0 to 10 because that's my numbers. So I'm going to make a table 0 to 10. and write down the good points. Okay. This would be t. Technically, it's t, and this is s of t. It's a function. You could write x and y. Nobody's going to matter. So let's write those down. So I wrote down the values. And now I'm going to take it and put it on the graph paper. So now let's start here. So it's 0. So it's 1. I'm going to count every other. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I actually could have made that a little bigger. That's okay. Yeah, why not? Let's stretch that out a little bit. Okay. Let's make it better. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the heights, we're going to go, so about 30. So count by twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And graph these points as best you can on this curve. So I'm going to do that right now. You try it. So I'm almost done. So 9 is at 28.09. So I can't graph that 0.09, so it's pretty much 28. So it's a hair heavier. And 10, we're back up at 30. So what we want to do now is connect this with a nice curve, right? Now we know what the picture is supposed to look like. It's supposed to look something like that. So you want to do your best, right? No straight lines. Oops, a little low. And like I said, it's really tricky on the computer. Something like that. All right, now, so that's our graph, and I could label this, but you know what, I'm just going to call it S of t, because I have a number, you know, it says what it is. I'm just going to label it S of t, and it says, what is the minimum annual snowfall in inches? Well, they want to know what's the lowest. So right here is the minimum. So the minimum equals 10. If they ask what's the maximum, it would be 30. You can also get this by just looking at the equation. Max would be the amp plus the shift, 30. Minimum, shift minus the amp, 10. Well, that's it. Hope that helps graphing. It's one of the major topics is the trig on the Algebra 2 and Regents, because it's called Algebra 2 and Trig. So concentrate on your trig problems. And hope this helped. See the website for more videos, and have a nice night. Thanks. Bye.